Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following me, you know I've been talking about the low birth rate, not only here in the United States, but in other nations that are facing the same exact struggle. Now, China is one of these places that probably would have been all right if they didn't practice that one child policy for over 40 years. Had they not done that, I think things would be just fine for China. So they are struggling. And, there are the articles coming out. Here's another one that calls it an underpopulation bomb. So, ladies and gentlemen, this came out in the Washington Post, January 18th, 2020. China's birth rate is its lowest in decades. Other countries are facing the same trend, birth rates in decline. So, as you can see from this chart, it is showing you Cuba, and that's another thing, y'all. I am shocked to find out that there's low birth rate going on the islands. Not all of them, but some of those islands are facing low birth rate. And Cuba is one, and I know Puerto Rico is another one that reported low birth rate, you know? So you never know. This is really something that is hitting worldwide for real. So if you look at the chart here, you can see Cuba, China, Japan, Hungary, and Germany on the charts. And in the 1960s, they were slightly higher, you know. But remember, in many of these countries, the low birth rate started back in the 50s, actually. The decline was starting. And, China looked like it was doing pretty well in the 50s as far as births were. So was Cuba. And you just see it slightly better in um, Germany and Hungary and Japan. They were slightly higher, but not by much, as you can see when you come down to 2017, when you look on this chart. This is real. I had a troll mad at me and told me they are sick and tired of me putting out false information about the birth rate. And I'm doing the articles. I got the article on the screen, and they're telling me I'm putting out false information. Go figure, y'all. China was long notorious for its one child policy. And remember, they were aborting the girls like crazy. They were trying to, and they still do, by the way, they still get those ultrasounds. And if they can figure out that it's not a boy, girls are still heavily aborted. Now, as far as abortions are concerned, ladies and gentlemen, China leads the entire world in abortions. After it took effect in the late 1970s, population growth began to slow, which was the point. The country's leaders wanted to ensure that economic growth would outstrip demographic growth, however steep the price. Well, somebody definitely was not thinking. Whoever came up with this one child policy, they definitely was not thinking about the future of the country at all. Particularly stark was the decline in female babies, as some families prioritize keeping males instead. Okay, well, eventually those males are going to have to mate in order to have, another generation. And without the females, how are you going to do that? People definitely were not thinking over there in China. Now, mind you, these are the folks that you notice it's all of the places that claim they are smarter than, especially us that are going through this. I just take exception to that. I just notice. The original policy did allow some exceptions. In 2015, China relented somewhat, shifting to a two-child rule. Yeah, but what good is that if you're going to have two boys and you are eliminating the girls? And that's what, woo, people aren't thinking. But as the latest figures from China's National Bureau of Statistics show, the change has not produced more babies. The country's birth rate in 2019 was the lowest in the 7 decades since the founding of the People's Republic of China. China is not alone. Many other countries, including Cuba, Germany, Hungary, and Japan, face declining birth rates. Believe me, it's way more than that. You didn't even touch on Korea and wow, you know, Singapore, and you have all of the Eastern Europe nations, and you got the United States and Canada. Mexico was also going through a low birth rate. A lot of the countries all throughout South America are also facing low birth rate. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a global phenomenon. It really is. Each of these five countries, though, is taking a different approach to the challenges this trend poses. Wow. China's birth rate has been falling for years. And in 2019, it hit 10.48 per thousand, the lowest since 1949, according to China's National Bureau of Statistics. Despite the low number of new babies, the country's overall population grew because of a stimulus decline in death rates. It just means that their elders are living longer. That's all. And that's going on all over, including here in the US. Still, China's government is worried and looking to slow the trend it intentionally set in motion. The country's share of aging people is growing fast, while the number of young people, the core of the workforce, continues to decline. Wow. The problem, experts say, is that just because people can legally have another child does not mean they will. That's absolutely right. A host of calculations goes into the decision to procreate, including affordability. There have not, for example, been additional overhauls of child care and paternity leave policies to make a second child more feasible. And see, that's the problem. Even here in America, y'all got some of the most family unfriendly policies in the workplace I have ever seen in my life. They barely want you gone to even have a baby. 6 weeks? Man, very unfriendly. The policies are definitely policies. I can tell women were not involved in making these policies. You can tell. Birth rate in much of Latin America are declining, but Cuba stands out. So we are in Cuba now. The country's low birth rate and fertility rates, coupled with steady immigration, means the population has long been shrinking. At the same time, Cuba has the oldest population in Latin America, putting further pressure on working age people. Developed countries have low infant mortality, birth and fertility rates, but their population don't drop because they receive immigrants. Antonio Aja Diaz with the Center for Demographic Studies at the University of Havana told Miami Herald. Okay, but that's not the case of Cuba. Part of the problem is that for years, the government pushed political opponents and anyone seeking a different kind of life to immigrate. For now, Cuba's demographic factors does not appear to be changing. Okay, and then we got Germany. Germany and China both have declining birth rates coupled with population growth, but for very different reasons. While birth rates in Germany are steadily low, the country's overall population size has continued to grow because of the recent influx of more than 1 million migrants and asylum seekers. These new demographics have also been a boost for Europe's largest economy. Without this new generation, Germany would have beset would have been beset by an aging workforce and not enough people to maintain it. And if you remember, a lot of Germans were angry with Angela Merkel for turning a blind eye to all of the immigrants that were coming in there. But as you can see, it helped them in not declining so fast in population, although they are still struggling with a low birth rate. Germany's population reached a record of 83.2 million in 2019, though the rate of growth was the lowest since 2012. The country has also been reducing its openness to migrants, and a possible harbinger of changes to come. Yeah, I remember back like around 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, she Angela Merkel was turning a blind eye to all of the migrants coming in, and the people were angry, but she didn't turn them away like they wanted. Hungary has been doing exceptionally bad. In the face of population decline, Hungary's government has decided that fertility clinics could be the answer. Prime Minister Viktor Orban is a staunch nationalist, vehemently opposed to immigration, so he is turning to government run fertility clinics. One of a number of top down policies has been instituted aimed at reversing Hungary's falling birth rate and labor shortages without having to let anyone new and not ethnically Hungarian into the country. But the problem is the people that look like you, Orban, are the ones that can't have babies. In December, Orban's government announced the purchase of 6 private clinics with in vitro fertilization as a specialty. So what he's doing is he's offering, and if you followed my video, I did it on this particular country of Hungary. They are offering free fertility treatments for the Hungarian women over there to have babies. And look, they got in vitro fertilization clinics here in America, and it's not doing a thing to boost the low birth rate. So, do I need to say more? Seriously. Okay. In December, Orban's government announced the purchase of 6 private clinics with in vitro fertilization as a specialty, facing a matter of national strategic importance. The government said it was taking control of the IVF facilities and exempting them from anti competition restrictions. As of 2020, the state now offers free fertility treatment drugs in these clinics. Orban has also established tax benefits and loans beneficial for families in an effort to kickstart more reproduction. Japan, and y'all know Japan has tried everything, including free homes and all kinds of perks. and it still has not raised their population. Reproduction in Japan was never state controlled as in China, but birth rates have been on a steady decline. While many economically developed countries are facing similar drops, the number in Japan are stark. The population is expected to decline from 127 million in 2018 to 88 million by 2065. You really can't go by these numbers. I mean, look, they keep changing the year here in the US. First, it was 2050. I saw 2060. Then it was 2045, 2042, 2040, 2032. I mean, the numbers that they give you and the projection is really bogus. And to be all honest with you, I think these things are going on now. They're just too afraid for the entire global population to know what's going on. So they just keep putting all these projections out. And these projections are false, y'all. They're false. And there's a lot of immigrants living in Japan now. Every year, 500 schools close because there are not enough students to fill them. Japan needs more babies or an influx of new people to keep the economy growing. So, a lot of similar things to Germany is happening in Japan. There's a lot of people from other countries settling there. So, but the Japanese people, themselves, they're not having babies. Yet discussions around population rates in Japan continue to skirt a politically charged word, immigration. In 2018, the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's government proposed a controversial, by Japan standards, proposal to bring in hundreds of thousands of foreign workers. The bill sparked outrage among lawmakers who decried it as a backdoor to starting an immigration process. This strategy also faced criticism among those who favored a more open approach to immigration. The problem is that Japan's unwillingness to acknowledge that it is accepting immigrants means no government funds are allocated for integration efforts, and there are no law against hate speech or discrimination against foreigners. The Washington Post, Simon Denyer reported. Now, ladies and gentlemen, another thing that's happening in Japan, their elderly people are asking to go to jail because they are lonely and they don't have anybody to take care of them. So, what they're trying to do now over in Japan with all of these senior citizens in the jails, this is really happening. You can look it up. They are now trying to pair young inmates with these elderly people to take care of them while they're behind bars. Now, it's got to be bad anytime elderly people volunteer to go to jail because they're lonely or they have no one to take care of them. But that's what's happening. But y'all, this is a serious thing going on, and it's going more rapidly than you can imagine. I know it may seem like it's not rapid, but it really is. It really is. And if it wasn't rapid, you would not be seeing them writing about these things so often. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.